Hey guys, Ron from FunctionBuilt-Aquatics. This is the video I promised about the patoti grogot pair that Nathan and I imported about 6 months ago. This pair was a little bit of a work in progress, rather aggressive towards one another. Their leaping ability is second to none. I mentioned in a lot of videos I have that you must make sure you have a tight fitted lid on all your aquariums that maintain wild betta fish, and in most part all fish. Wild bettas will always find a little hole to jump out, and you know that's the terrible way to lose a fish, especially like this. Now, getting into the leaping ability, these fish are known to literally jump out and try to grab at my fingertips. They've actually pretty calmed down from doing that, but in the beginning, they were always fired up. I could always hand feed these guys crickets. I always kept their tank on a lower level of the actual shelf, so when they ever did jump out and I couldn't catch one, you know, they didn't have a far leap to the floor and you know could possibly get hurt or die. Now, as far as aggression is concerned, this particular subspecies of patoti, at least this pair itself, very aggressive. And I had to utilize the mirror method that I've discussed in other videos to actually get this pair to bond. Now you can tell by the way he's now flashing and showing his size. Both of them see their reflection in the mirror. And I utilized this particular mirror method to get this pair to bond. Now, what you typically do with this is not a novel idea, did not come up with this, but it's a great idea that a lot of cichlid breeders have used. And wild betta fish people can absolutely adapt. You put a mirror in a tank, and what you try to do is you try to get a pair to bond to drive their common enemy away. And in this instance, of course, it's their reflection. The female sees her reflection, the male sees his reflection, and the pair will bond together and try to drive their enemy out of their territory. And in doing so, after a week of doing this, off and on, here and there, you don't want to do it constantly because you don't want to stress the fish out to where they're expending tons of energy fighting the mirror. But it's a good way to get them fired up to not only bond, but to see them at their maximum potential for color definition. Now, you can see this fish is flashing all his beautiful hues, his reddish brown tint all around his finnage, and the female is trying her best to show herself too. Females are typically a little more muted of the pair, and the male is always more colorful in wild betta fish. But you know, even the females, for the most part, especially female macrostoma, they can be beautiful just as much as the males. Just maybe not exactly the same coloration, but they can have their own little formation of color that actually looks very attractive. Now I used this mirror and I bonded this pair, and this pair has spawned for me already. And so far, this pair gets along famously inside their 15-gallon, standard 15-gallon aquarium. I've thought about maybe putting some coolie loaches in there with these guys. I keep the coolie loaches with the macrostoma, but I would have to put substrate in this tank, and I painted the sides, back, and bottom so I wouldn't have to do so. I typically like to keep coolies in sand. They just do a lot better that way. But as far as the grogot are concerned, this is not a very common subspecies of patoti that you can find in the U.S. I know there was a small influx of collectors that were shipping them, you know, all over the world. They're not very common, but they are awesome to keep, and I would consider them to be rare in most collections. I have these guys on a rack right below the macrostoma, and I'm only keeping the rarest of my betta fish in this particular room. So, for the most part, I would consider these guys just as rare as betta macrostoma. They may not get the same attention because they don't have the gaudy coloration, but they are just as rare, if not maybe even slightly rarer in the actual hobby itself. Very aggressive, and I consider them to be way more aggressive than macrostoma. And you can watch this male bulk up as he sees his reflection, and his female, you know, she's getting spunky. They're going to wind up spawning pretty soon. I just started giving them earthworms, and usually when you give them earthworms a little bit in their diet and you change their environment like I just recently did, that spurts spawning behavior. So I'm going to let you watch these guys do their thing, and if you haven't already, please do so, subscribe, and thank you for watching our videos and supporting FunctionBuilt-Aquatics. See ya.